Hi, this is Kalyan from PSYsolution. We are live again with the third episode of ABC of Pure Nature Cure PNC. ABC of PNC. Today's topic is primary principle of PNC. Let me introduce the panel with me. We have SOUPARNA from Durgapur, MEENU from BIKANER, BINAL from Mumbai Thane, NIDHI from Bangalore, PRIYATOSH from KOLKATA, and INDU from Hong Kong. So welcome all of you to this session, and thanks a lot for making time and like all the efforts to join online. And the protocol, and I welcome all the viewers, those who are watching live or recording on Facebook and YouTube. We are going live. We are live actually on both the platforms, both the social media platforms. So the protocol, the flow of the show will be the same. I'll be proposing the concept, and then the panelists will propose their questions and comments, perhaps. And then we'll be also taking the questions from the viewers, those who are joining live on Facebook and YouTube, right? So I'll be keeping the panel backstage till the time the proposal is over. Then they will be joining back again. Thanks, panelists. So we'll be coming again on the show after I finish my presentation. So I'm removing them to avoid any noise, and they also should be able to watch it without any disturbance. So yes, so this is the third day. This is the third day of the series of ABC of PNC. Before I proceed, I would like to bring upon this disclaimer for all the viewers. The opinions expressed in this talk are based on pure nature cure science of health and do not coincide with medicinal theories. PSYsolution does not claim that any advice given represents a cure for diseases. If anyone has doubts regarding his or her health, it is the responsibility of the individual to consult a competent health practitioner. This workshop is not aimed at hurting anybody's belief or philosophy. PSYsolution believes that the true health does not need treatment, it needs education. It is an endeavor to educate that the real cure is always from within. With that, I would like to share some protocols also. It is a dialectical format that we are following, where the proposals come and the counter argument comes, and then we try to bring a synthesis. So here what we follow is, we don't need any reference actually. No quotation, no scriptural reference or any data. Whatever we understood, because dialectical format is an understanding driven aspect. So we don't bring any reference and we don't expect any reference to be brought. Second protocol is that we stick to the whole analysis and the causal analysis. We will not waste a lot of time on discussing about the part analysis or the effects analysis. So what are the effects? Effects can be multiple, but the cause is a single thing. So one single cause can have multiple effects. So why to waste time on each effect discussion when we understand the cause at the deeper level? And definitely there is an egolessness in the discussion. It is expected. That's a dialectical protocol that we follow. Now coming to today's topic, but definitely this is the third day. We need to recap little bit of the things that we have done previously. PNC's definition. PNC is dialectical understanding of nature and life, in which we understand that in nature, every life is structured to grow and maintain homeostasis. Homeostasis is the balanced state of being. So this maintenance happens without any specific external dependencies. Specific external dependencies we need to understand. So specific external dependencies neutrally and naturally. Neutrally and naturally. Right. Now specific external dependencies could be matter dependency or non-matter dependencies. So matter dependencies could be medicine, supplements, any stimulants, or anything perceivable, your property. If you feel that you are completely dependent on your materialistic property, then that is actually a limitation to follow the uh, conserved state of vitality. And the non-matter dependencies could be your relationships, imagination, assumptions, or anything non-perceivable. I need not to name all the those dependencies. You can understand that. Now, we also understood the difference between the medicinal fraternity and the natural health fraternity. It is a disjoint set. There is no intersection point. So with medicinal philosophy, we cannot argue on PNC's philosophies. With PNC's philosophies, we cannot argue with the medicinal fraternity proposals. And within the natural fraternity also, there is a different approach, non-PNC and PNC. We have understood. We understood this conical presentation of the understanding of diseases. In medicinal understanding, there are thousands of diseases. In PNC understanding, there is a single disease called toxemia. Now, yesterday, in the basis of PNC, we understood the lifespan framework as we understand this cone. This cone is a common cone which will come repeatedly in this workshop, in this series of the lecture, which you need to understand. The 0 is the birth and 3 is the death. And this one straight line 1 is the physical maturation of self. One individual, when physically matured, this is that point, maturation point. And 2 straight line, number 2, is the physical maturation of the offsprings. Offsprings means the reproduced species by that individual. Now, predominantly in the first phase of life, the analysis is predominant, and then understanding is predominant in this particular second phase, and the realization is predominant in the third phase. We also understood the reason, the dialectical aspect is prominent, very prominent in the first phase. Then the flexibility appear. When we are following reason, we become rigid, but in the next phase we become flexible, and that is the parenthood. During the parenthood we become flexible. Earlier we used to be rigid. Then the emergences come. Emergences comes always follows after the flexibility, according to the PNC. Now, reason also has got this set Venn diagram. That reason zone is a subset of the rationality, which is our focus, primary focus. But we identify that there are other things which are available, really available, exist, but we may not be able to give the reasons. And there we don't conclude those things if we don't have the reasons. That's the protocol in dialectics that we follow. Also, in the vitality understanding, we understood through the observation in nature, these 3 things are very common in every aspect. The efficiency. Every system in nature are programmed to attain and maintain efficiency. And how it is maintained? By conservation of energy, conservation of vitality for the organisms. So this is a common thing. Now, this conservation has got a pattern. Unless it attains a pattern, conservation cannot happen. And that pattern is nothing but the symmetry. Symmetry is one of the biggest topic that we discuss, but definitely with the paucity of time, we will not go much on the symmetry. Tomorrow we'll be unfolding a little bit of the symmetrical aspect and the law of unity. Now, in nature, we see these 3 primary capabilities: self-repair, self-reproduce, and self-regulate. So in the same lifespan framework, in the first phase, the primary capability of self-repairing is executed and achieved. Then the reproduction capability comes, and then the regulation actually overpowers. Otherwise, you see the violet overlapping cone is there since the birth. The regulation is the primary aspect of any being, any organism, and that makes the organism behave like an isolated system most of the lifetime to conserve vitality. Now, with that understanding, we start to understand the first law of thermodynamics, which says that the energy can neither be created nor be destroyed, and that also called the law of conservation of energy. With that understanding, PNC proposes that the vitality is fixed quotient since conception to the perishment of the body. And with that, this is a bar of, this is very important. This is very important understanding. That's why in the recap, I'm bringing this. I'm spending 10 minutes time for the recap so that the next portion can be understood clearly. So this thing to be understood very clearly. This bar, A, B, C, D, if these are the 3 points, let me remove the ticker so that complete bar can be visible. So here AB is the disengaged green zone, which is the sense of life. Right now, whatever the energy that we are sensing within ourselves, that is this green zone. And this black zone is the additional engagement, which is C. Now CD is the organic engagement of vitality, which cannot be reversed. Reversal of this portion cannot be possible. Reversal of this black portion is possible. Right? So this AB plus BC plus CD is always fixed. So red is irreversible. Red is going up, and when it will touch the brim, we will die. But before that, we can play around with the black, because this black is the additional engagement which can be reduced to increase the green zone. This is the simple mathematics, right? Now let's start today's topic. Today's topic is the primary principle of PNC. Primary principle of PNC is nothing but the voice of the organism, we call. Voice of the organism is the primary aspect that has to be understood before we proceed further in PNC. Now, what is that voice of the organism? Voice of the organism is not just a voice. This is a process of analysis. So if we define the voice of the organism, then we find the process of origin analysis, the process of origin analysis of body sensation. So we have multiple body sensations in our lives. So this particular voice of the organism is a process of analyzing the origin of the body sensation and identifying the natural vis-a-vis the rational perceptions, because every sensation brings some or other perceptions. So why we are doing this? We are doing this to conserve vitality. So this voice of the organism is a tool to regulate ourselves, the self-regulation. It is not an imposed regulation, law and regulation we are not talking about. It is also tool to conserve, tool to conserve vitality, and we achieve a primary sense of growth while employing this analytical approach. Now here we need to just touch upon this aspect of action, feeling, and thoughts. Action, feelings, and thoughts are perennial in our existence. These three things are always interconnected. How these are interconnected? When we act, we feel something about that act, and that feeling generates some or other thought process, and that thought process enhances the next set of action, further the feeling, and the AFT actually cycles this way. Now this AFT is again a bigger, longer topic, obviously, but we need to focus on this F portion. F is nothing but the body sensation. The feelings, any kind of feelings that we try to understand or identify, that is nothing but the feelings, body sensation, and that has got the entry points of our sense organs. We'll come to that, sense organs. But after the sensation hits us, we perceive that sensation and identify whether that is acceptable or rejectable. Right? So pleasure and pain, we call it. So analyzing this aspect is the goal of the voice of the organism. Now, before we proceed about the realities of the body sensation and the perception, we need to understand these two terms. Tendency is a spontaneous characteristic. It's a natural growth. It is inaction. Inaction is nothing but spontaneous action. Like on the image, you can see the mango. Mango tree doesn't have any intention to please any taste buds. It is our mapping. It is our natural mapping. Our taste buds gets mapped to the mango and we relish the taste of mango. But if we replace this mango with a mango jam, it is an intention. It is a neural derivation with critical analysis, with an objective. So objective of the CEO of the mango jam factory is to please our taste bud, right? So we need to understand the difference between the tendency and intention. And going forward, now let's map the two things, tendency and intention, with the reality. Yesterday, Dr. Satish couldn't join today. He's a professor in Kerala, is a professor of psychology. He was actually raising this point about materialism. We claim about materialism, so why we are not able to change the food habits, even if we understood it completely. That means we have to use our mind. So why we claim that this is a science of materialism? This is not an idealism. Mind is not considered over the matter. The reason is the created reality aspect. We need to understand created reality is, so first of all, reality is that which has got a physical existence. Reality is that which has got a physical existence, which can be perceivable, which is matter, right? That's what is the reality. Now, created reality is that intentionally creating a physical reality. That is what is a created reality. So when you see mango jam, you should not consider the matter alone, because matter is ideally, matter is a natural aspect, but mango jam has got a mixture of matter and mind. We need to understand, and that mind element has to be addressed by mind. Otherwise, without the mind, we are well equipped in nature to go ahead with the matter. There is no need for the implication or the intervention of the mind. But definitely it is not criticized. The application of the mind is not criticized, because it is a process of evolution and application of the intelligence through which we created a lot of realities, and we use those realities for the life. Just that we should not be dependent specifically on those realities, and that will deplete the vitality. So here, should and should not is not an ethical imposition that we are talking about. Should and should not is with the understanding of conservation and non-conservation, right? Now here, assumed reality is something which is created in the mind. Now I'll give you an example. Suppose you got burned by fire, and then that is a reality. You got burned, you touched a fire and you got burned. That's the reality, right? Now, if you start assuming that the fire will burn me always, that's in the mind, that's not the reality. And you suffer from a phobia of the fire, that's an assumed reality that you are suffering from, right? Now, created reality in this aspect is, suppose somebody is burning you. That's a matter. The fire is the matter, but this burning you is the mind here. So it is a created reality, right? So these three things we need to understand. And what is that aligned reality? Aligned reality is understanding all these three things. When you understand deeply about these three things, this is what is the aligned reality, right? Now let's see what is this reality and created reality and the differences. See, the physical entry of the reality is nothing but these five sense organs, right? So with these physical entry, we actually experience the reality at the first layer: eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and the skin, right? So these five senses receives the reality at the first level. Now let me bring up notepad. So so whenever the body sensation comes through those five entry doors, we actually start perceiving it and tag it as pleasure or pain. Pleasure or pain. So pleasurable stimulus is acceptable and painful stimulus is rejectable. This is the simple understanding in nature. There's no rocket science in it to understand. So this pleasure and pain are to be dealt with acceptance and rejection. If we deal with according to the senses or the perception, these are the perceptions actually. So if we deal these accordingly, then we conserve vitality. But if we do not reject the source of the pain, then we actually engage more vitality. This is one aspect, right? But the problem happens with the pleasure, because organisms are hedonistic. We always seek pleasure. Hedonistic means seeking pleasure. That is very much identified by our mind, and we have created pleasures. So the source of the pleasure could be nature or could be artificial intention. So natural source is the tendency driven and artificial source is intention driven. So this artificial source is called as stimulation. This process is stimulation. And whenever stimulation is accepted in life, we actually indulge into it. We don't regulate. So regulation is, that time regulation gets reduced and we indulge into it, which engages lot of vitality in the process. That is the increase of the black zone. So this is what is that voice of the organism analysis. This is the origin analysis. Now I'll just walk you through a few examples of the senses. Eyes are programmed to look at the reflected lights. We do not like to look at the source of light. Why? Because we get squeezed. The eyes get squeezed automatically. It's absolutely understandable and identifiable. But if you see this, the gadget that we are using, that's nothing but the source of light, but it is a created reality. So created reality is a combination of stimulating the pleasure and suppressing the pain. So when we opt created reality in our life, we engage more and more vitality because of the combination of stimulation and suppression of the pain, right? So all the gadgets that we are using are sources of light, and this is actually innervating us. This is actually engaging more vitality. We need to understand this fact. Now, going ahead with the ears, the rhythm is pleasurable, but rhythm with loud sound like DJ is again a stimulation and suppression combination. Nose, the natural flowers are very nice to smell, but the artificial perfumes actually it suppresses the foul smells. Now, as far as the tongue is concerned, the natural fruits and vegetables with little bit of the modification but without taste modification are naturally tasty, which is the tendency driven aspect and which requires lesser vitality. And the burger, as you see on the screen, that is a created taste, that is a modified taste that engages a lot of vitality. Similar to the skin is a bigger topic that we'll cover later on the seventh day perhaps. So the deepest touch is sex. So rational sex is pleasurable. Irrational sex is also pleasurable. Now, what is rational sex and what is irrational sex? If you understand, that's fine. Otherwise, we'll unfold that going deeper on the last day, right? So this is what is the understanding of the voice of the organism at the physical level. Now, on the mind level, I can go on, but let me bring the panelist here to go for a few Q&A up to here. Then if time permits, then I'll go to the mind, but otherwise also we can go to the mind aspect later on. So welcome back, all of you.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I'll start taking the questions. There are a few questions on the social media also, but I'll take from the panelists first. Sir,
yeah,
you have questions?
Who's going to ask questions?
You should have. You should have.
Anyone? Anyone? Nidhi is smiling.
Nidhi?
Yeah. No.
Nidhi, you have question?
Probably
Okay, smiling.
So if there is no one, then I can put one or two comments.
Yeah, please, sir. Please, sir.
Yeah. So to start with, really I don't find so far any objection to the basic essence or philosophical aspect of your approach, right? But I would like to add just not a question but a comment that you are very often using the terms, some of the terms which are taken directly from science world. It is because that your approach is itself is scientific, so maybe it's fine. And not only that, you are mentioning some of the physical natural laws that are well established. We teach our students also those laws, first law of thermodynamics, etc. Then it's a point that better to use very categorically the terms. For example, it's not against the policy or your philosophy, right? Just terminology. If you allow me to put some light on terminology, then I can go ahead.
Please.
Okay. Say for example, conservation. Conservation interchangeably we have been using for two different meanings. When you are referring that energy is conserved, you are referring first of thermodynamics, you are referring symmetry and conservation, then it means the total something is constant, right? Conservation. But in other cases and other points, what you are meaning actually, the term should be preservation, not conservation. So for example, you are saying that in some article I have also seen from of your article, that total is something engaged and disengaged, right? And then you are referring the disengaged as conserved amount. No, this is the preserved amount, the available free or available to you. The total is conserved. So the question to conserve something is meaningless because by natural law it is conserved. You don't have anything to do with that conservation. What you can do by changing the amount of engagement and disengagement, you can preserve some of the energy. That means you can make your energy free or available for your purpose. That is that
Amazing.
the word. That's the word should be preserved.
Accepted. So absolutely accepted.
Interchangeably, that's the first point. Second point, very more important and interesting point. That I don't find any reason to put so much of emphasis by bringing unnecessary conflict between a pair of two pair of concept terms. The first pair is today you have discussed the structure and function, and the second one from previous days lecture actually, which and that also I have mentioned today, mind and matter. So I don't think to put I don't know whether in coming lectures will make it clear that whether you need this really the conflict and one superiority over the other in your coming lectures for your principle. If it is not, then better not to put any conflict between these two pairs individually, because it is better to take the complementary to each other. For example, you referred evolution. Now, evolution structure is more important or function is more important. We are taught in our biology classes that because of functions, we got through changes of structure. And on the other hand, structure change leads to the change in function. So you cannot isolate actually. So they are complementary and mutual. So better not to put that this is first and this is second, or this is more superior and that is inferior, right? And similarly, mind over matter, that is also very important. Why should I put mind and matter conflict? because when nothing was there, we are not quite sure how matter came, right? Out of blue, how matter came in the being. So, and one thing, and that mind matter problem, that when you are talking today, that pleasure and pain, right? Classification, well
Yes.
classified, that sensation and then perception, pleasure and pain. My question is whether pleasure and pain, are they mind game, or the game of chemistry, that means matter, or it is the game of both? My vote is in favor of the third, that it should be in favor of both. You cannot be isolated and at this level. And another is that first law of thermodynamics. That is very relevant to discussion. That efficiency you mentioned, efficiency, right? And you mentioned that efficiency depends on the conservation. When conservation it is not in your hand, then how efficiency should depend on conservation? Rather, again, efficiency depends on how much you have preserved, right? And for that, you need another natural law. First law tells you nothing about the direction of a process. It only tells about the feasibility. The total energy is constant. That's all. It cannot tell that whether in which direction will go, the reaction will go. And that's why you need another law, which is second law of thermodynamics. And it introduced another term, not energy, but entropy, which
Entropy.
tells you about the distribution of energy, not the energy as
Yes.
such itself.
Yes.
So I think you will bring in a second law, maybe in some coming lecture. If it is
Yeah.
not, then you please go through.
So on this point,
It
sir,
would help you. It would help you.
on this point, just let me respond
Yeah.
that pure
Okay.
nature cure actually analyzes all the laws of thermodynamics, including the zeroth law,
Oh, I see.
including the zeroth law. So
That's great.
I'll share an article with you. So if you are interested, then you can go through the correlation between all the four laws with the understanding of pure nature cure. So I'll
Oh,
not
that's fine.
confuse the audience with that deeper discussion that we
Okay.
actually go in our advanced workshops.
That I
Yes.
expect also. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you for listening for so long.
It's absolutely acceptable, that preservation word, and that is the dialectical process, and we'll include this change in our forthcoming workshops for sure. Preservation is more specific. Now coming to the mind and matter aspect and structure and function aspect, that we have really dialectical rationals to share. If time permits, I'll touch upon today also by end of the questions. Otherwise, in the forthcoming lectures, we'll touch upon those things. Any other questions? Anybody else? Yeah, Binal is back. So meanwhile, I'll take some question from the social media. Devans asked that does being rigid before parenthood in relation to personality traits, rigidity? Yeah, Devans, before parenthood means in the process of physical maturity, the the individual is structured to behave rigidly. It is a natural structure that we actually always seek for reason and behave rigidly. So that's what we mentioned in that lifespan framework. There are few hellos.
May I ask one more question? This time
Sir,
it's a question, not a
yes,
comment.
sir. Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
At one point, you
Yes,
mentioned in response to Mr. Dr. Sathish's question
yes.
initially, that justification has to be stopped for selection of food, etc. On that point. So my
Selection
question
of.
is food, etc. That changing the pattern of food he was asking, and then you told that okay, justification has to be stopped just to start. So the question is that justification is a process, just a mental game, mental process, and it's nothing but reasoning, and
You're
that is
talking
your
about the
one of the
yesterday's conversation.
yeah,
You're talking about.
Satyas,
Yes,
Satyas, oh, yeah, that
Satish.
I actually, before I
Yesterday.
started the today's, yeah, I was
Uh,
listening to the recorded
Listening to
question.
that.
Right,
Yes,
right.
yes, yes,
That's
yes.
why I'm
Go ahead.
asking.
Go
Uh,
ahead, sir.
so the point is that one of the basic premise that you have mentioned in yesterday's lecture, that region zone and non-region zone, fine, well explained, and I appreciate that. But if you say that justification to be stopped, that doesn't go against your basic premise, because justification is to be reasonable. So whenever I'm justifying, I'm trying to be reasonable. So you can't say that stop justification, isn't it?
Okay. So if that sounded as enforcement, then I am withdrawing that word. But my proposal was to acknowledging the fact that some food is nature driven and some food is intentional driven. And for going, so Satish was actually sharing his challenge that he understand everything, but he is not able to implement it because he feels attracted towards the cooked food and processed food. That was
Yeah,
the
yeah.
challenge that he was facing, right? So I actually acknowledge that fact that he is not able to understand at the first level, because understanding will come when he acknowledges the fact that these are the right food and rational food. So we somehow is give excuses that okay, this is we can go ahead with this because of this reason, but we ignore the actual natural reality, right? So that's what I was mentioning. I was not enforcing any
Okay, I
mandate
got it.
per se.
I got it.
Yeah, yeah. So any question, Indu ma'am, Suparna, Meenu, Binal? No question. Everything is clear. Nidhi is joining again. Okay, so if there is no question, then I'll take another 5 minutes to bring that presentation portion which I was proposing about the mind and matter, dialectical understanding of the mind.
Kurlan, they have left it for two brothers, Karn and Arjun, and probably that's why they are silent.
Right. So to answer your question about the mind and matter, why to give a upper hand to either mind or the matter? Somebody's Nidhi, do you have any question? Yeah, your actually mic was giving some echo. If you have any question, you can.
Facing a
Right,
lot
right.
of
If
disturbance,
you,
so I've missed a lot in hearing. But I had one question saying that, today,
yes,
as we
please.
all are the products of the environment, we have started to behave, feel so many things, how the environment is. We really know what is really ours, it's real, natural, or it is artificial. So difficult to differentiate today.
Yeah, origin analysis is the
There is some
answer, Nidhi.
insight. Yeah.
Nidhi, origin analysis. Your audio is a little disturbing. So I understood that you are sharing the challenge of identifying whether it is natural or artificial. That's what you're mentioning, right? I have muted you because there is some audio interference that I'm getting back. So so that is what is this voice of the organism proposes. It proposes to analyze the origin for its novelty, whether it is coming from nature through the tendency driven natural aspect, or there is some intention. So when you pick up a samosa, the samosa is not just the matter, it is not. There is a combination of matter and mind within the samosa. But a mango, but an apple or a banana is just banana. If it is again chemically processed and all those stuff, then again mind is there, obviously. But from directly from nature, if it is coming, then the aspect of mind is not there. So we can directly hit the origin and analyze it for its novelty. Right now, yeah. Any other question? Nidhi's network is not supporting.
Hmm.
Indu ma'am, Meenu ma'am, Binal. Any question, Binal? So I'll just share then
I
the,
missed.
yeah, conversation you missed. Okay, so you have to watch the recording. So before
Yeah.
we finish, let me propose the dialectical formation of mind. So, so mind may get some influence from the genes, genetics. So we are excluding that aspect to start with. Now, after the conception, the formation of the mind happens through those 5 doors, the body sensation doors. So this actually receives, the 5 doors receives the touch, taste, smell, sound, light through the skin, tongue, nose, ears and eyes, and we get some body sensation. So information enters through these 5 doors and we get a body sensation. Now that body sensation is perceived. Now we categorize that in different tags. Let me hide the tickers. Yeah. So that perception actually forms memory and projection, and that memory and projection forms the mind. So mind is nothing, the dialectical mind is nothing but the accumulation of these memory and projection aspect, the accumulation of the perception. Right. Now going forward, let's understand the assumed reality aspect, where I have given that example of perceiving fire as burning element only. The reality is not that. That example you remember, where the body sensation I have received, I touched a fire and I got burned. Then I perceived fire as the source of burning only, which is not the reality. And that forms memory and its projection for the future. Whenever next time I see a fire, I see that it is coming to burn me. So this particular perception, this kind of perception, which gives us some memory and its projection beyond reality, brings some imagination and assumptions in our existence, and that forms the mind. If it is kept in the mind only, which is not possible, then there is no problem. But the problem occurs when that imagination and assumption through the mind create body sensation. So body sensations should have a reality, natural reality, actual reality, to trigger some senses. But you thought the fire without touching the fire, you experience higher heartbeat. You experience higher heartbeat. That means from the mind, you are creating some body sensation. Mind should be created by the body. From the body sensation, the mind should be created. Here, the reverse thing is happening. That is where there is a loop. It happened without the physical reality. Without the physical reality, there is a loop of body sensation from the mind, from the imagination and assumption. And this happens because of the repeated acceptance of created reality and being dependent on the created reality. Now the aligned reality or rationality understood state, that will actually go in the same flow, but the perception here is just an awareness. The perception is just an awareness which gives a responsive memory, which also will form the memory. When we see the next time the fire, I'll not feel a phobia inside, but I am aware that fire is hotter than the normal. Fire is hotter than the normal. And this responsive memory forms a rational mind. That is why in the understanding of materialistic science of pure nature cure, we consider that the mind is always under the matter. Matter drives the mind, not otherwise. Over to you, sir.
Sir, I just want to say something here.
Yes, Meenu.
There is a question from INDU which she has typed. My question is not
Okay.
related to today's topic, but in general, you said that fever is a sign of throwing illness. To which extreme we can wait not to suppress it?
Okay. My question is not related to, but in general, you said that the fever is a sign of throwing illness. To which extreme we can wait not to suppress. Right. So here, this is a generalized question. This one, an answer to this, a generalized answer will not be possible, man. Now, let me tell you. Here, the reality is a fever is a tool. It is a friend, right? But now the point is how you perceive it with your deeper understanding. That's how you have to deal it with. Like for example, I have a 4.5-year-old daughter. She had 4 to 5 times fever, really high fever. For 12 days also it went on. But we were celebrating it. We never visited doctor, we never gave any suppressive medicine, and she rebounds back. Because it is an innate capability, we are so convinced, we are not worried at all. But in that situation, if you are worried, you should seek assistance. Being worried and opting a natural recovery won't be possible, because you need to be relaxed at the mind level with your deeper conviction, right? Because neural engagement of the vitality is huge comparing to the physical level and physiological level. Hope that answers your questions.
Yeah, in connection to that point, let me support you. Though it seems or sounds a bit ridiculous that you are not
Yes.
going for any medicine even for 12 days disease, but in connection to COVID situation, I have heard from some psychiatrists, even doctors, that your best medicine is to keep a high life state. Right, so they are not talking about medicine. That means if your life state is very high, then probably you can prevent even corona. So that is going in according to your line. So life state, that means okay, but mind is coming somehow, but life state is important, not the medicine. So
Yeah.
slightly connected, I
Understood.
think, to your answer. And the
Yeah.
example
So
that you have shown, yeah, yeah,
recommendation wise, actually, there are a lot of similarity we can find, but the rational, the internal understanding of the health differs, and that's where we request everyone to opt PNC with deeper understanding, not only the blind recommendation. Whether
right,
that's what I'm very much reluctant to give these kind of questions answer.
statement,
That
right,
if I have fever, then what should I do? I don't know what you will do. What do you think to do? What you
hmm,
feel to do? That's what is the primary important thing. So conviction will drive you to do something. Like Binal the other day was sharing that the first fever when she sailed through without medicine, that's a kind of wow realization about the body's power of repairing. Right. So
yeah.
that thing needs to come from the conviction. Yes. Yes, sir.
Uh, One
We are
thing
overshooting the time.
yeah,
I'm okay. I'm today. I don't have any
you are okay.
engagement.
I am also okay.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
does the
also.
platform has some technical problem? Does the platform time sharing problem?
No, no, no,
Otherwise,
no, no, no.
no problem.
It can
Okay,
go
so
yours.
you
Yeah,
can go
yeah.
to infinity.
We can go.
Fine.
We can go.
So, at one point, in response to my query, actually, you mentioned through a
Sir.
diagram beautifully
Yeah,
that
yeah.
irrational mind and sensation, that
Irrational and
interconnection.
rational mind. Right.
Irrational mind, it controls the body sensation,
Yes.
but it should be the other way, that body sensation should control your mind, kind of thing,
Should
right?
should
If I'm not
form your
wrong.
mind. Yes.
Yeah.
Should form
So
your mind.
in connection to that, let me just say a few other words. That actually the materialistic philosophy is a bit Western philosophy, and which ignores the mind game. On the other hand, the Eastern, very one form of Eastern philosophy, they say everything is mind and even matter is illusion, sabi maya, kind of thing. But there is a third kind of philosophy, which you can say the middle way of philosophy. That third philosophy tells, there is a very famous quotation I am quoting, that you master your mind, not allow your mind to master you. So it ridiculous to me initially. It was that you means you who you are. You have definitely have a mind. Otherwise, you are no one. So you are telling that you master your mind. That means you are separating your mind and you to separate entity. How it is possible? I am the same person. So how I can control my mind and not allow my mind to control me, etc. Now, from your point, I am getting a connection. What you're referring as irrational mind, that means here in this quotation, the mind, and you is your rational mind. That means you are telling that you, the rational mind of you control your irrational mind and never allow your irrational mind to control you. So that is in gist what I can connect with my philosophical perspective, uh, perception. Very
Yeah, yeah.
interesting. That means
Rightly
how you
aligned.
connect it.
Right.
Yeah.
Rightly aligned. So
Hmm.
here actually, what we find four sets of connection. If we actually permute body and mind two
Hmm.
aspects. So body producing or forming body, body produce forming mind, mind forming body, mind forming mind. So
Yeah.
are you getting? So since we don't have any problem to overshoot, let me actually write it for you all to understand.
But whether you
But
are overshooting the mind capacity of the panelist. if they are not getting bored,
Yes,
you have to take care
If
of
they
that also.
I
are, if
understand,
they,
sir, what you are saying.
you couldn't understand, Meenu?
Yes, absolutely, sir. I'm able to
You
understand.
understood. You are able to
There are
understand.
four.
So,
There are four
so body
possibilities of the
to
permutation and
body,
combination we're talking about.
body to body, yes, body
Yes.
to body, body to mind. Now, mind to body and mind to mind. This is very interesting, actually, understanding overall. So, this first category is reality. Body actually produces body. So, blood produces cells, supports cells to grow, get the nutrients, eject the toxins. And more, body creates the mind. This is also absolutely fine because body only produces mind. That's what we understood in the previous diagram also. Now, mind creating the body, mind creating the body is the alarming thing, which is irrational because reversing cycle. And what is why it is irrational? Because without any physical reality it will go in a vicious cycle. If you remember the diagram that I have shared, it is mind creating body without any physical entry, again body creating mind, again mind creating body, body creating mind. This will go on, and that is why this is irrational. But this aspect, the the fourth aspect, the mind creating mind, this is what is the rational creativity, where any kind of thought that is coming to you which gives you a creative pleasure but doesn't disturb in both the ways, not depressing, not very much exciting ecstasy. So that is what is the rational creativity. So I get often this question, actually, creativity. Yes, I get this question often, that what about the creativity? What about the creativity? It also comes from the mind. But rational creativity is that creativity which doesn't disturb you. So, for an example, a painter painting beautiful paintings and not getting any kind of pride into it or no excitement, but the pleasure, the joyfulness of painting. It is what is the mind creating mind. If that painting, no matter how great the painting is, giving up the pride, giving up some extra excitement, that actually is the mind creating the body, which is irrational. And no matter the body sensation, how great it could be, it is just an atom bomb you're sitting into. So many a time, the other in the previous one webinar, somebody was saying that during the meditation he thought of singing good and he ended up singing good. So he was talking about the visualization. So he visualized, he was not a singer, but he could sing well. So he was actually arguing that, what about this? This is a great virtue I got out of that visualization. So I explained that you are actually creating a knack of creating body through the mind, right? The other day, this discussion was also there. You are having, you have a pink shirt, and with that pink shirt, you write well in the examination, right? And actually, you write well in the examination, and you start considering that the pink shirt is the reason. So you have created a assumed reality in the mind, and you are imposing that into the body sensation, correlation. So this is again a mind creating body. So these all things, be it a good sensation or bad sensation, if it is coming from the mind, then we need to question it.
And out of those four, you are picking up one, particularly the third one, that mind creating body is dangerous, right? You have mentioned. Now, when you are calling something
Irrational,
dangerous,
not irrational. Irrational.
Rational.
anyway,
That is not reality.
irrational.
That is not
Uh,
reality. That is not
now,
reality.
if you
We
are
actually
assigning
seek
some,
to we
yeah,
seek
if you
to
are
see
assigning some,
reality as it is. Yes.
Right. If you are assigning some adjective to that process, out of 4, one is you are picking particularly assigning some adjective. This is dangerous or irrational, etc. So, is it not a matter of your values that you are calling it irrational? Is it objective then? Is it in that way scientific, or you are just adding your values that it is
It is not
irrational?
an ethical discourse, sir. It is not an ethical discourse. We have defined the reality which has got a physical entity. That is what is the concretize. We can concretize the physical reality if it is available, perceivable. Perceivable physical reality is the rationality. If it is not perceivable, I cannot concretize it. I cannot establish it. Right?
Right.
So, in that way, if we start perceiving the sensation, body sensation, which is a reality, physical reality, body sensation, when some warm feeling is coming on the skin, then it is a physical reality. Physical reality,
So,
right?
so when we're talking about perception, I'm perceiving the reality. So, how
Yes.
do we perceive? Through our 5 senses, right? Sense organs. That is
We
our
no, we
assumption. 5 sense
we
organs.
receive the body sensation through the five sense organs.
Yeah, 5
Then
organisms. Organisms.
yeah, then we
Yeah,
perceive it after processing the
yeah,
sensation.
but
It is not
the
the work of the sense organs. Perception is not a
yeah,
work of the sense organs.
but the gateways are the 5 organs, right?
Yes,
Through
that's
them
a
only they are
physical.
coming. Yeah,
Yes, yes.
but some school thought goes like that there is a 6th organ actually, and which is mind itself. So that is
Yes,
a another point.
that is what, sir. That is what
Yeah.
actually we discussed.
Hmm.
Let me go to that aspect. This is the sixth organ that we are talking about. Sixth sense organ is this when we actually start
Sir, we are not able
allowing.
to see what you're showing. It is showing the eyes slide. Yes, this one. Yeah. Okay.
Is it there on the screen?
Now we can see. Now we
Yeah,
can
it is
see,
on the
sir.
screen. Hmm.
Right. So here actually when we allow mind to perform as a sixth organ, sixth sense organ, that means it is creating body sensation if it is. So one is that your mind is bringing some creativity, which is again adding to the self. So adding to the self may be a little deeper topic that will go in the forthcoming lectures, but definitely it will give a growth to yourself, the creativity, but not the body sensation. So physical growth and the psychological growth or the cognitive growth are two growths. If we perceive, then mind, which becomes a sixth sense organ, if it is giving a cognitive growth, then it is a great mind. But if it is giving you a body sensation, within the body, if you identify any sensation because of your mind, that is what is the irrational aspect of the sixth sense organ
Mm-hmm.
that we
Okay, I got it.
identify. Yeah,
Got it.
yeah. So I'll definitely share the articles, related articles, and these presentations with you for further discussion. And
Mm.
this is
I
relishing
think now
discussion, and
I
we are
think now
overshooting the time.
we should thank the other panelists for bearing us for so long. I think.
No,
Yeah,
sir.
yeah,
This is a delightful discussion. I was looking forward to this only.
Oh, I
yeah.
see.
Right. And a special thanks to Meenu publicly. I owe you a thank to for convincing Dr. Datta for this conversation. Thanks a lot, Meenu, once again.
Always a
Right.
pleasure, sir.
Thank
It's
you. Thank
for
you.
my own self-interest.
Yes, yes, yes.
Still, I'm
That's
not
what
quite
is.
This
sure whether
is
the coming days.
delightful.
I'm also interested to join all the days, coming days, but I'm not quite sure how many days I'll be able
It
to
would be a
join.
pleasure, sir. It
So
would be a
many
pleasure, and
seminars are going on actually. Yeah.
I
Anyway, I'll try
understand.
my best to join you.
That would be great,
Thank you,
sir.
sir.
Tomorrow is your favorite topic, and we would like to hear from you a lot about symmetry.
Symmetry, is
Yes.
it?
Yes,
Oh, tomorrow is 6th. Okay, I'll try my best.
yes,
Yeah,
yes.
that's
So
you
be
wanted
ready
a
for
brief
our
Ultimate
one.
tomorrow
principle.
also.
Ultimate
Yeah,
principle of PNC.
yeah.
Yes,
Very often I say also that this is the ultimate
yes,
principle. Thank you very
yes.
much. So,
Right. So last
Thank
appeal
you.
for all the viewers to join our workshops to dive deeper for the co-evolution. And you can value this work. You can contribute. You can WhatsApp on this number to get the relevant links. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for joining
Minu,
us.
can I get
Yeah,
the first day's recording to my WhatsApp? Yeah, I have
Yes,
not got
we'll
the
we'll
first
sent
one.
it
share the
already, but
playlist.
I'll send it again. I'll send it
Okay,
There
again.
is there is a
first one.
playlist we'll share. There is a
Oh,
playlist.
Yes.
All the recordings are available there. So this is the
okay.
third, and fourth are
Yes.
also scheduled there in that playlist. Right? Thanks a lot, everyone.
Thank
Today we have overshot the timing by 30 minutes. Now my little daughter is waiting for me to go to the park. Thank you.
you. Okay. Bye bye.
Yeah.